See, the evidence is there. When you go, Sunset Rock is a ledge, but it's got direct, immediate evidence of the ice age. It's got scratches on its surface where boulders and cobbles were dragged across the sandstone by moving ice, by moving glaciers. It's got a fracture pattern that can only be created by the passage of a glacier across a bedrock. You can stand, you can look down at the rock, you can put your finger, literally put your finger on the evidence, and you can point the direction that the glacier went. You can turn around and point in the direction that the glacier came from. In many locations, you can point, you can stand on places where meltwater carved canyons. You can look at, well, of course, Catterskill Cove. It's a canyon carved by meltwater. You've been there, you know how big it is. Can you imagine melting glaciers created the water that eroded Catterskill Cove and Plattekill Cove? And you stand there and you look at it.
The bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right. So, Tad, crazy beautiful weather, huh? Well, it was a great day.
Spring could be here.
Oh, it could be. It was so nice. You know, you sent me a picture from your front porch the other day. That looked a little too warm for where I was living.
Well, it was the first afternoon that I came home early from work this year, sat on the front porch and pulled down a cold beer.
Wow.
And
how
just
warm
relaxed. Was it? Oh, I don't know. I think it was in the low 70s.
Man, it was like 60s up here, man. The wind was blowing. Was it whistling down there towards you?
It wasn't so windy. In fact, it hasn't been windy enough really to dry out the yard yet.
Wow. Yeah, we've had some crazy wet weather. So welcome everyone to episode 120 of Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountain podcast. Tonight we have Dr. Titus. Sorry, I'm getting used to that. I got to get used to that, Tad. So I'm very sorry. Do you accept my apology?
Yes.
Yes, God.
Apology accepted.
So tonight we have Dr. Titus and Johanna Titus here on their new book, Hudson River School of Art and Their Ice Ages. They'll be joining us later on. So we're going to chat a little bit and they'll be joining us later. So solar eclipse brought over $3 million to Essex County in the Adirondacks. Wow. That's crazy to think about. And I mean, awesome. Absolutely phenomenal. A lot of people object to this, like, don't come into my thing. But, that's a hell of a lot of money.
And just because of that, they ought to do them more often. We need more eclipses.
We need more fake eclipses.
Yes.
Nice.
Fake eclipses.
So the regional offices of sustainable tourism in Lake Placid released new numbers on the eclipse, which they didn't really capture an amount of people, which I'm curious of what they are. But overnight visitation was calculated based on a 95% occupancy data reported by hotels and other rental services. And it does not include day trippers or those who stayed with families and friends. So the estimate represents an increase of around $2 million at the same time of last year. And found very positive was, once again, we chatted last week about there being no rescues, except for one rescue, which I think we'll talk about later. No, that wasn't during the rescue. We'll talk about a rescue later. But one little rescue, which I was blown away that there was only one there when I thought there would be like 50 or 60 because of, the conditions up there. They had ice and snow.
Remarkable.
Yeah. It's crazy. I'm just glad everybody cooperated and everybody, came to these terms of what it was probably like up in the upper areas of the Adirondacks. They probably saw it when they drive it in. They were just like, no way, absolutely no way I'm dealing with that. And I'm very happy for that. It's crazy.
Imagine hiking down one of those trails after the eclipse with hundreds of people. If everyone went up to the mountaintops, that would be nuts.
That would be nuts in those conditions, definitely. Post-hole madness, especially. And no shoot, no, everyone, everybody probably would have just formed a conga line and grabbed onto each other and just fell down the mountain together.
There you go. And the view wouldn't have been any better at the mountaintop.
I probably would have thought that the views would have been crowded, but from my point of view on social media, I saw that they were actually very good, and not a lot of people went up there. They just stayed in the valleys and looked at the open areas. So
before you move on, I just have one question about the eclipse. Now, is it too late to post any more eclipse photos on Instagram or Facebook?
Doesn't seem like it. I mean, a lot of people are doing that.
You should stop. It's like, it's over. It's done.
It's beautiful, though.
It is beautiful, but I think no more posting. I think it should be done as of this Friday. No more eclipse photos on Instagram or Facebook until the next one.
Until the next one. 20 years later, right in the middle. Hey, I'm fine. I'm seeing stuff that I'm just like fascinated about, where they are all throughout Northeast. And I'm very happy that a lot of people got to experience it, and a lot of positive thoughts about the eclipse, that they said, they were glad to travel 4 or 5 hours to spend that 8 hours traveling down south to get back home or something. I mean, you had that experience in the eclipse, and I had, not as good of an experience with clear skies and such, but I find it a remarkable time that I would definitely go do it again.
Yeah, I would too. I don't know if I would personally spend $3 million though.
Correct. You got all those flights going up to Lake Placid and stuff like that. Those crazy people. So beyond that, one thing I wanted to mention, Tad, that's pretty cool. I think you introduced me to this, is the Catskill Crew's newsletter. So Catskill Crew newsletter, pretty cool thing. You want to explain that? Because I'm just starting out.
I just sent you the link. I know nothing about it. I was expecting you to bird dog this, you to bring the intel, you to educate everyone on it. But if you want, for our next session, if I'm invited back, I will bring the info on the Catskill Crew newsletter.
Check them out on Instagram, and I believe they have a Facebook as well. The guy, I'm sorry. Oh God, he's going to kill me. His name's Matthew. I can't say the guy on there and not go with who it was. Okay. All right. So Michael from the Catskill Crew newsletter, he just does recent or upcoming events with the Catskills that are happening, and it's phenomenal. And next episode, we'll come back with what's happening in the Catskills, a little bit of what's happening. He's got a lot. He does a lot of stuff in there, so does his research. So Michael, thank you for that. All right. So Tad, you wanna go with this rogue rehabber in Nassau County?
No,
this is kind of like your area.
No, it's not. That's kind of offensive. So so there was a wildlife animal rehabilitator, which in order to do that work, you do need to get registered with the DEC. And apparently there were reports of this rehabilitator unlawfully accepting raccoons in her home on Long Island. The DEC officers determined that she did not have the required rabies vector species license, so she shouldn't have been accepting raccoons. And they received multiple tips alleging that she was negligent in her rehabilitation practices, allowing raccoons to escape her residence and roam free listen closely, roam free in her vehicle. So I have an image of her driving to a mall on Long Island with like 20 raccoons roaming free in her vehicle. And then she was disposing of the dead raccoons in her residential garbage.
What?
Yeah, sounds a little crazy. So
Yeah.
they inspected her home, located 5 dead raccoons and a possum in crates in the garage or in the garbage outside. Inside the residence, they located a mourning dove, an eastern box turtle, other animals that she was not permitted to possess, many squirrels. According to the DEC, she was allowed to possess the squirrels, but failed to adhere to the required guidelines for preventing the squirrels from becoming habituated to human contact. The subject was issued 4 notices of violation for illegal possession and transportation of rabies vector species, 2 counts of illegal possession of protected wildlife, and a failure to comply with the terms of the wildlife rehabilitator's permit. Her license is currently under review by the DEC Division of Wildlife. So this person could be your neighbor.
Wow. I've had problems up here with people in the upstate counties with dogs and stuff like that, but I've never heard of someone accepting in raccoons, especially while driving. Just imagine that. I'm trying to think of the movie where they had that, where like something was walking across of the movie. I think it was like Dumb and Dumber or something like that. And just, like someone would be like, hey, your raccoons are outside in the vehicle and it's 100 degrees outside. Please come out and get your raccoons.
Yeah. Well, that seems to fit, but this is certainly a sad, you don't know if there was something wrong with this person or if this was just normally how she was. But I just have an image of her house being a wild habitat for raccoons, possums, squirrels, box turtles, all sorts of things.
And I think raccoons are absolutely adorable. They are just so cute, the chubbiness in their small hands. I just think they're adorable, but they also, like you said, carry rabies and stuff, and they're trash pandas.
Well, if you're gonna have raccoons, you need a special license from the DEC.
All right, I'll have to talk to my wife about that. So I talked earlier about a little sort of rescue up in the Adirondacks. This looks like once again, I asked when the eclipse was. God damn. What does it say? May. So the eclipse was the 2nd. This was, or the 1st. Or the 8th. Jesus, sorry. This was the 8th. So on April 5th, 1905, or at 9:05 p.m., Raybook Dispatch received a call from a hiker requesting a ride because his camping gear got wet while on the Rooster Cone Trail in the Adirondacks. Also, because the hiker was not injured, Dispatch encouraged him to make his way out to the trailhead, get a ride, and find lodging. So at 9:30 p.m., which is 25 minutes later, the 22-year-old from Massachusetts called back and said he was too cold and didn't know if he could navigate the steep embankment with his bicycle. Now, this is once again April 5th, and there's still snow and ice up there. So I don't understand how this happened. Now, Forest Ranger P, I'm going to call that Forest Ranger P because the last name is pretty difficult to remember. Praxagdro made contact with the subject, located the campsite to retrieve the biking gear, and helped him to a local motel. The hiker was not dressed appropriately for the conditions, wearing only sneakers, jeans, and a light jacket. Now, that sounds fun. I saw the pictures. That was pretty crazy.
Well, my first observation is he calls in at 9:05 and then calls back at 9:30, 25 minutes later. So I have this image of this fellow shivering and freezing in the nighttime and counting minutes off his watch till he makes that call again, right? Because for 25 minutes, that's all he allegedly tried to self-rescue himself. So it seemingly doesn't sound like he put out that much effort. Made the call, the second call at 9:30, and it doesn't say here what time they got to him and how far in he was. But it sounds like a truly miserable experience for this 22-year-old fellow from Massachusetts wearing only sneakers, jeans, and a light jacket.
Yeah, looking at the maps, that is located right in between the Giant Mountain Wilderness and the Johns Brook primitive area. So it's 2,500 feet in elevation, top elevation. So it goes from, it looks like around 1,500 feet. So that's a 1,200 foot elevation hike, or whatever you're thinking. But once again, at these times, they had snow and ice there. So to say how I'm going to bring my bicycle up here, I don't even know what it has. Yeah, exactly. It's just, once again, these situations baffle me. Like your situation once again with the people going up Wittenberg. I know you want to see an awesome view, and I've heard Rooster Combe actually has one of the most fantastic views in the Adirondacks. But to put yourself through this misery, especially when, like, I would like to know when this person started to make a call at 9 o'clock. That's just absolutely insane. 9 p.m.
All I know is when I was 22 years old, I probably would have done the same thing.
See,
Right?
and I go out to bars. I wasn't a hiker at that time, so you were a lot cooler than me. So craziness up in the upstate New York once again. So my friend Todd Bolt sent this. So Todd is a follower of the show, and he sent me a little link that said the stairway to heaven in Hawaii is set to be destroyed. So this place in Hawaii, if anybody's seen like the pictures of basically a great big massive staircase going up the mountain, that is called the highway to heaven, or the stairway to heaven in Hawaii. And that has been closed ever since, I'm pretty sure, the early 2000s. And it's 3,922 slick steel steps that ascend the narrow ridges of the Kahula mountain range. It has been a legal hike since 1987. So sorry, really 2000, Jesus. Trespassing costs hikers $1,000 per citation, but thousands still attempt it for the scenic view and just because of social media to get that picture on those steps. So now with the crazy rescues and such going on in Hawaii, I know there's helicopter rescues probably I've heard of every week or so, maybe even more often than that in the Hawaii area, just because of massive steep perches up in Hawaii that just rises in elevation instantly. That this area is now to be destroyed because people are just pursuing this without saying anything, while doing anything at all. It's crazy.
So from what you say, I gather that even with $1,000 fine, people still do this. Yeah. And if people still do it with $1,000 fine, although it's prohibited, what will people still do in the Catskills if the DEC put certain restrictions on hiking the trailless summits without a permit or something else, with some other license guide or other approval from them? Does it really deter people from going where they want to go? Maybe to only a small degree. What do you think, Stosh?
I don't think that'll ever happen here. That's a little bit far out there.
It's not whether it happens or doesn't happen, but what if it does? What if the DEC says $250 fine if you hike Rocky? What do you say? You're going to still hike it?
Depends on where they're telling me I can't hike it from.
You can't hike it from anywhere unless you have a licensed guide with you.
Oh, that's
You get your guiding license.
Yeah, so there you go. You're going to have how many people have completed the 3,500? So it's around 4,000 people, a little over 4,000 people. So 4,000 new people are going to get their guiding license.
I guess it's a way to raise revenue.
I was just going to say, it's a way for the DEC to get more money besides doing a podcast. Boom. So speaking of that, the Stairway to Heaven. So between August 2017 and March 2020, police officers turned away 11,420 people attempting to hike the stairs. So that's pretty crazy that there's $1,000 fine, but at least they've turned away them and not fined them.
It sounds like it's time to rebuild the stairs.
I don't, I'm pretty sure. So I'm trying to read about this. Uh, they've been people around there have been complaining of disturbances by the hikers, hop fences, trespass on the private property and such, steep cliffs, unpredictable weather, of course. It is very dangerous, and any mistake can result in a helicopter rescue. Once again, the helicopter rescue. There's not a fatality on there, but between 2010 and 2022, more than 188 people were rescued, paid by the taxpayer. So I'm guessing the people around there are just sick and tired of this. And helicopter rescues are not very, very cheap these days. Let's just say that. I've never gotten one, but I've heard about them. And they say a bill was introduced last year to make people pay for their own rescues, but it did not pass. So just like the White Mountains, where they have the hike safeguard, and you can kind of get out of that. You don't have the hike safeguard. If you were doing negligence, you will get fined and you will get charged that probably $10,000 to do the helicopter rescue. So maybe they should start doing that in Hawaii, because of how much crap has hit the fan in the past 4 or 5 years with the rise of social media.
It makes sense. Make people buy a hike safe card or its equivalent. Make them get a little education when they buy the card online, and presumably it'll reduce, at least by a few, the number of rescues and subsidize the expense of the rest.
Should be licensed guides down there. The licensed guides only, everywhere. Yeah. Boom, done. Yeah,
I could get into being a licensed guide in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's pretty. I would be scared shitless.
We should take the show on the road and go to Hawaii and be on location. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to call an executive meeting of the podcast.
We're going to have like draped over microphones on us while we're hiking.
Whatever it takes.
I'd have to edit out all the heavy breathing that we're doing, because
we'll sound like two elderly porn stars.
Big silence right there. That was a crazy metaphor or whatever, but it actually does say it. So good point. What else we got? So famed alpinist sets to make record on Everest. So this guy, Valery Babinov, one of the world's most testicle alpine climbers, said he's been preparing for this all of his life. So he's 59 years old, and he wants to set the record of going up Everest without bottled oxygen. So the oldest person to push up Everest without bottled oxygen, 59 years old. And he is set to do this. It looks like soon. He didn't say anything. He looks way older than 49. Sorry to say this, Valerie. Right? Have you seen a picture of him?
That's what I thought. I wasn't going to say it. I was going to be politically correct and not comment on his age and or appearance. But yeah, I thought he looked more like 69 or somewhere in his 70s. Yeah. But he's going to try it without oxygen. God bless him. He'll need that help.
Maybe you should get that hike safeguard.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the one thing, I think we talked about this a little bit, is the whole blown out of proportion thing of Mount Everest right now. How, it just how much the thought of the cost of doing it right now, it just blows my mind beyond that. And to say that you've done it and you're like, hey, I did it, but then you have 8 Sherpas doing the work for you, just blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't understand it, and enough people do it, and apparently it does something for them. People go all around the world, climbing those super big mountains, and I just don't understand what I guess there's a rush to it, but it's not for me.
Yeah, agreed. And I love those situations of craziness. You get those weather situations, but after reading books about people's climbs up Everest, I read a book, I forgot his name, but it was called K2, Life or Death. And he laid in his tent for, I think it was like 18 days trying to get good weather. So imagine laying in your tent, boiling up water every day, just water, and then you have to eat. Like I'm pretty sure he said like Snicker bars or granola bars every day. Nope. Said he lost 45 pounds.
Wow. And then he still tries to make the summit,
He did.
right?
He actually did.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy
Yeah.
to lose all that weight and still have the energy to get up there.
And speaking of that, he did it without oxygen. He was one of the first people to climb all those 14 peaks. I forgot what they called those. The 8,000 meters or something.
Do they give you more than just a patch to put on your backpack if you do that?
I was wondering that too as well. Like, how the hell are you climbing in the Catskills and you get noticed that you've like climbed Mount? How do you brag that, hey, I did Mount Everest, bro?
Yeah.
This is nothing.
Maybe they can tell because you're not even breathing as you go up slide or plateau.
Or there's 8 Sherpas with them taking up stuff up Slide Mountain.
Carrying all of your gear along.
Like those licensed guides do.
I have to carry that? What? I carry a backpack? No. I've climbed Everest. I don't wear backpacks.
Exactly. Yeah. So good luck to him. Really, really good luck. I'm pretty sure. All right. So that's it for. So thank you to the monthly supporters: Chris, Darren, Vicky, John, Betsy, Denise, Vanessa, Joseph, Jim, Michael, and David. Really appreciate you guys supporting the show. The list is so long that I had to say their only first names because it took so long, and then I would just mess up everything. So you guys, thank you very much for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Also, thank you to the sponsors. If you're ready to hit the trail, make sure you take the scenic route. Our guides are here to help you with your goals, big or small, like Marcy or Slide, Alone in the Sewers, or probably Rooster Comb with a bike. Check out Scenic Route Guiding and the Gear Rentals on Instagram and Facebook for more information. Also, if you mention the podcast, you can get 10% off. Use the code Mountain Lion. Also, check out Another Summit, a nonprofit program that leads outdoor and adventure activities for veterans and first responders for free. Another Summit's Epic Adventure applications are open. This year's Epic Adventure include a 9-day canoe trip in the North Main Woods and a through hike of the Northville Placid Trail in the Adirondacks. Epic Adventures are a step-up program where you receive classroom instruction, wilderness first aid training, and a custom 3-day training trip, all leading up to an adventure that you'll never forget. Of course, this is 100% free for veterans and first responders. Applications are open until May 1st for the Allagash River trip and May 15th for the Northville Placid Trail. Apply today at anothersummit.org. Also, is it time for some new gear hiking in the Catskills? Say no more. Camp Catskill in Tannersville has all your hiking needs. Footwear, socks, moisture-wicking shirts, freeze-dried meals, Catskill merchandise, and more. They have all the essentials for your hiking needs. Located in Tannersville and online, check out Camp Catskill. If you want free stickers, stop here. So, Ted, you having a coffee, tea? What are you having tonight?
Oh, I'm having another cup of home-brewed coffee. What makes this cup special is the fact that I ground up some beans I roasted over the weekend. So it's about as backyard to mug as I can get.
And I have gotten those roasted or those crushed beans one time, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was like I was climbing Mount Everest, and the people Nepalese, is that what you call them? Nepalese were giving me their own ground coffee beans. It's fantastic. So, previous hikes, or lame excuses. Previous hikes or lame excuses. I got to up that. What do you got for me?
Oh, so on, what was it? Saturday. I was planning to hike up to South Double Top over the High Falls Ridge. But that hike, the way I wanted to do it, entailed some water crossings. I knew the water crossings were going to be less than ideal. And more than just crossing the water, I really wanted to follow up the Pigeon Brook for quite a ways because it is an interesting brook in the Catskills. So as I set out, I was a little indecisive whether I should do that or do something else. But as I'm driving into the Catskills, the snow started flying, and I decided to go with the best winter experience you could probably get in the Catskills on Saturday, and that was going up Slide Mountain. So that's what I
Nice.
did. I got into the parking lot. I was the third car there. Another fellow was setting out just as I got there. He was doing or working on his 420. He was at about number 330 on the list. And I did run into two other fellows along the way who were also doing a big hike that day, at least on my way up. So it was a fun hike. But one of the things it did remind me of as I was setting out right after signing in is what I mentioned a few weeks ago about the lack of a bridge crossing the West Branch, because the water was high enough that it was somewhat challenging to get across. It wasn't impossible, but I could imagine other people coming along that day and having some difficulty with that. So it really begs the question why the DEC hasn't put a bridge there. It's not as if they need to lug the material from the parking area, a mile in order to establish the bridge. It's right there. So at any rate, I made it across the bridge and I went up the Curtis Ormsby Trail. And for those of you who have never gone up the Curtis Ormsby Trail, don't. Leave it to those who have been there before so it doesn't get overused and abused, because it is, I think, one of the best trails in the Catskills to go up. I'm sure you've been up at Stosh.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely enjoyable. And it is off the, not I'd say the beaten path, but the beaten path of Slide Mountain. It is off.
Yes. And one of the things I like about the Curtis Ormsby Trail is you really have a sense when you're transitioning from one forest type into the next as you go up the Curtis Ormsby Trail. And it just had that same wonder and magic this past Saturday as it has on prior hikes up there. So nonetheless, I made it up to the top of Slide Mountain, looked around for some Adirondack chairs to relax in, and there were none. And then just turned around and headed back.
Disappointing, man. I think somebody's going to go back up there and do that.
Yeah.
What about the conditions? Where did you deal with like ice and snow and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I was able to bear boots the whole way, although I did have my micro spikes with me. It was warm enough in the days leading up to this that it seemed like there was some heat underneath the ice. The ice was soft. The freshly fallen snow was wet snow, so it was really sticking to the ice, if you will. And I was, getting really good traction on it. Going up the Curtis Ormsby, I don't think I had any ice the entire way going up it. I did, though, once it turns onto the main Jeep trail to the summit of Slide, run into some ice coverage, but like I said, it was really grippy and I got good traction on it.
Nice. Yeah, that Curtis Ormsby Trail really, it really differentiates from the regular trail going up Slide because, of course, that trail going up Slide used to be an old carriage road that led you up to the highest mountain in the Catskills, so it was very popular. But once going off of that trail, you get a sense of how good it could be if it wasn't an old carriage road and how deep you are with the mountains off of that trail because people are like, it's a little bit longer. I don't want to take that trail. But then us true hikers are like, yeah, we're going to take this trail because it's a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's good that the peak baggers have something that gets them up to the top, and it's a very durable surface, and it keeps them off the Curtis Ormsby because it takes wear and tear off the Curtis Ormsby. And for those of us who want a little more extended hike, get the benefit of going up, what is an older, more natural progression to the summit than what I call the Jeep Trail. You call it the carriage trail.
That's true. Definitely
Tomato,
a Jeep Trail.
Tomato.
Yeah, but awesome. Well, good. Didn't you say you dealt with something on the way down too as well? You didn't hit just snow. You hit rain as well, right?
I'm not going to, on the mountain, no. There was, when I first got to the parking lot, it was just a very light, wet rain, not enough to put on rain gear from the parking lot going out. And I have to say, once, I got into that first, maybe 75 feet, 100 feet up from the parking area, it was more solid precipitation. And then whatever precipitation I had from there on, up or down, was the white stuff. So I was okay with the precipitation. What I did see was on my way down, I started running into hikers who, and some of them told me this, that they didn't check the weather forecast in the morning. They were just going on what they saw Friday as being the forecast, and the forecast did change. It wasn't calling for as cold of temps or the precipitation that they got on Saturday. So I saw a few people who kind of looked like that 22-year-old who was up in the Adirondacks with his bike. One guy had short sleeves on and what looked like sweatpants, no gloves, ran into another fellow without gloves. And I'm sure on the way down, they got cold.
Yeah. Sounds like one of those fun days of where you basically have to pack for everything that you got going on because it might just happen.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. You want to talk about the yellow trash bag guy?
Oh, well, that was the one guy that just had a short sleeve shirt on and sweatpants. When I first saw him, like 100 and some yards away from me, I was like, wow, that's kind of an odd looking getup he's wearing. And as he got closer, it became apparent that he had apparently just taken a trash bag out of the trunk of his car and cut some holes in it for his arms and threw it over himself. And that's what he was hiking up the mountain with. And talk about a Sherpa, as I remember, there was two of them. There was the fellow in the yellow trash bag, and then another person. They were together right behind him, who was carrying the backpack and a couple Polar Spring water bottles. And I don't know, it looked like it might have been their first hike in the Catskills. And I take it because there was no ranger reports regarding rescues or assistance that day, that whether they made it to the top or not, they made it back to their car safely.
Good for that. Good for him for kind of improvising at that time.
Yeah,
I would say. If you listen to the show, get a hold of me. I'm going to shake your hand, because usually people are just like, t-shirt and sweatpants will be fine. It's only the Catskills.
Yeah. Well, maybe that was the start of his preparation to someday, before he turned 60, climbing Everest without oxygen. It all started with the yellow trash bag going up Slide Mountain in the Catskills.
Here's a new book that somebody's going to write.
Yeah.
This guy's going to write a new book. The yellow trash bag guy. Copyright that crap. So, wow, cool. Yeah. I once again, lame excuse. What did I do?
You volunteered for something. That's what I hear.
Did I?
Probably.
I don't know. I probably did. I don't remember. I was probably sleeping, but I had a hockey game that night. It was the last hockey game of the season on Sunday. So got to do that. But today I went out and I did some disc golfing today. I did some awesome disc golfing up in Oneonta with my friend Alex. And we both did really like a great course up there. If you don't know, disc golfing is basically free anywhere. So I have not hit a place before I had to pay. Well, I had to pay in Oneonta. That place makes it pay, but there are very many state forests that have made old CCC areas, some forest areas, into disc golf courses, and buy some $20 disc online, and then go out and find UDisc, which is an app that shows you where all these places are.
UDisc,
yeah,
that sounds cool. So all right, so you're hanging out with Alex. Inside joke, I need to know, what did you bring?
The Tesla.
Oh, you took him out in the new Tesla. Nice.
Well,
did he like it?
He loves it. I don't know how he thinks it's no different. It's just got more miles. It's a little bit more punch, but no different. But he loves it. He wanted to go all the way to Voorheesville to go disc golfing. So he doesn't like long drives, but then he wants to drive long distances away to go bowl or go disc golf.
Does he want to drive the Tesla?
He does not want to drive that thing.
Really?
No, he's too afraid that it's going to kill him. But we had a beautiful day to be outside, 60 probably around 65 degrees here with wind. So it was just beautiful. And I wish I was out in the Catskills or something. But, at the same time, I thought, I was just like, man, those higher elevations have got to be the absolute worst conditions of the year.
Oh, I don't know. I would have gone into the mountains today if I had the chance.
God damn, good point. I would have too. I'll go down. I'll be there next week. Next Tuesday, I'm going out. I got it next Tuesday. And this Sunday, we might be going out to Bramley Mountain once again. I got to get out there and get to see what they're doing. So, speaking about Bramley Mountain, Catskill News, Volunteer, 3500 Club, Catskill Trail Crew, Catskill Mountain Club, Visitor Center, Jolly Rovers Trail Crew, and Bramley Mountain Fire Tower, if you're up towards me, that everybody needs volunteers. Stickers, get some stickers here. I know there's a volunteer opportunity at Camp Catskill. So Camp Catskill Cleanup Crew, April 20th. So it's Saturday, April 20th. So at 9 a.m., join us for a roadside cleanup event at Camp Catskill with Leave No Trace and Hike on Guides. They're going to be located at, Hunter Mountain Brewery parking lot at 9 a.m. to clean up trash along 23A in Hunter. So anybody and everybody gets this on Friday and wants to go out just for a nice time with crew of Camp Catskill, be there 9 a.m. I won't be there. I unfortunately have to work. I don't get the weekends off. I'm like the only dude that doesn't get the weekends off. Got to do what you got to do. This is America, right?
That's right. Got to pay that mortgage.
God, then the carbs, everything else. All right, weather forecast, quick weather forecast. So I'm looking at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on Peak of Moose Mountain. So Friday calls for temperatures 40s, mid 30s to the mid 40s. Cloudy with light rain showers going on into the night. Not too bad. Saturday looks absolutely stunning. Clear skies almost throughout the whole day. A high of 34, a low of 19 with a wind chill of not negative 19, but 19 degrees. Winds are going to be high 30s. Sunday looks absolutely beautiful again. Some clouds, mainly clear, with a high of 28 to 34, basically, and then the wind chill is getting down in the low 20s. So get out this weekend, crush it up, have some fun. Be safe, bring your spikes. You won't probably need snowshoes, but definitely spikes because the higher elevations might have some ice, especially in those areas where they don't see sun. So, Tad, do you have any plans this weekend?
I might get back to that plan that I was going to do this past weekend. High Falls Ridge up to South Doubletop, explore the Pigeon Brook, or I have something more esoteric up my sleeve. You'll just have to stay tuned to see which one.
Looking forward to it. Always do. All right. So let's get on to the last of the sponsors. We are at Catskill History. What we're doing is Catskill History tonight with Dr. Titus. So he's going to do some Catskill history about that. So last set of sponsors. So if you ever wanted to learn more about hiking or backpacking, or even just brush up on some of your old skills in the backcountry, check out Trailbound Project, a hiking and backpacking school. Scott and Joe from the New Jersey Search and Rescue Team have amazing backgrounds in wilderness first aid, wilderness first responder, and the Mountain Rescue Association, and they are here for you to learn old and new skills of hiking and backpacking. They teach anything from first aid, map and compass skills, and many other that could help you and others out in the trail. Check them out on their website and all social media platforms. Also, check out Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Molly from Outdoor Chronicles Photography specializes in adventure elopement and adventure couple photography in the Catskills, Adirondacks, and the White Mountains. She's an officiant for getting married and a licensed guide, but she is also a story maker. Molly won't just give you photos, she'll give you memories that will last forever. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. All right, so let's get on to the guest of the night. Well, guest. Let's go. Of the night. Let's pluralize that. Guest of the night. So Dr. Titus, Robert Titus, and Johanna Titus are here to talk about their new book, Hudson River School of Art and Their Ice Age Origins. Now, once again, Dr. Titus, it's been a while since...
Hey. Dr. Titus retired 5 years ago. I'm Bob.
What? No. Okay. No. Okay, Bob.
Retired.
Okay, so I will go refer to you as Bob now. Bob and Johanna are here tonight to talk about their new book. And Bob was here, and Johanna, I think you were also here on as well as the last episode we had, which was episode 12. So that was 108 episodes ago. So I
Wow.
think you were popping in once in a while, Johanna, on this. And you guys were at my 100th episode. So I thank you guys very greatly for joining me on that. It was fantastic. It was good to have you guys there. It's good to meet you.
It was a fun day.
It was crazy, wasn't it? It was a good showing.
Yep.
Never thought it would be like that.
Congratulations on that too.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been a great time. So let's get a little background from both of you. Bob, we'll start with you first, and Johanna, maybe.
Well, I'm a geologist, but specifically, I'm an invertebrate paleontologist with a real fondness for the Ice Age. And I've been writing for the general public since 1991. What is that, 33rd of a century? And we've got a cat moving our computer around right here, so people bear up with us. I'm only one half of the family here. I'm only one scientist in the family here, so I'm going to ask Johanna to introduce herself.
I'm Johanna Titus, of course, wife of Robert Titus. And I came into the picture in 1998 and have been working with the other scientists in the family for that amount of time. And I am a biologist by training. I do have a minor in environmental science, so I know some geology, and what I don't know, I've kind of absorbed from the other half.
Tell him what your master's degree is in.
It's in molecular biology.
She's the smart one in the family.
Whoa, my molecular biology.
Yeah, molecular.
But it's a molecular biology that kind of no longer exists because the subject has advanced so far so quickly that I could probably only participate in maybe 30% of it if I'm lucky.
So the two of us are used to evolving, to changing ourselves. We're living a new life from the one that we had 20, 30 years ago as not just popular science writers, but communicators with numerous lectures, PowerPoint presentations, and podcasts such as your own. We've got 23 engagements scheduled for the next 6 months. We'll be speaking, doing PowerPoints mostly at 23 different locations. It's a lot of communications that we do. And we've written about 1,100 newspaper and magazine columns.
Wow.
It's just remarkable. We look in the mirror and go, how did that happen?
Sometimes I'm sitting here doing this and I'm like, how the hell do I do this? But now you're just like putting me to shame. Definitely. So we're
out every week in the Mountain Eagle. We recommend our columns to all of your listeners. The Mountain Eagle is essentially the newspaper of the Catskill Mountains. And we're very proud to be associated with it. It's turned into a very fine newspaper, and it is the voice of the Catskills, and we're a part of that voice.
Yeah, I definitely follow some of the Mountain Eagle stuff. Ted, I know you've read some of that stuff, correct? Oh, you're muted, Ted. It's all good. I don't think you're muted, but I don't think it's working.
Yeah.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
There you go. He's
all
back.
right. Yes. So back to the Mountain Eagle. I have read the Mountain Eagle with increasing interest and anticipation of tonight's podcast with the Titus duo of Catskill scientists.
I like it. That's a new thing. Tad, you might want to tell them to copyright that, or you copyright that.
We're actually Team Titus.
Team Titus. There you go. TT.
Yeah, we're referred to at the FDR library as Team Titus.
Nice. I love it.
Cool.
So, with your not qualifications, so your degrees and stuff like that, how would you say that the advancements between when you graduated and when you got your master's degrees and such, that as far as it has come? So Johanna, you said basically that you can't really participate in it because of how far it's come, but do you guys feel that you can still play the game with everybody?
Well, it all depends on what subject you're asking about. Molecular biology, I doubt that either of us
No,
would
no. On my best day.
the geology, thank goodness, goes a little bit slower. So,
Yeah.
New innovations in geology and new theories in geology are a lot easier to keep up with.
We've witnessed plate tectonics. We go back to before plate tectonics. It was one of the great revolutions in the science of geology. We don't anticipate seeing anything like that again. But we were old enough to have witnessed some of the great moments in the history of this science. I myself could go back to doing paleontological research tomorrow, but I like writing so much more. I like speaking and writing and podcasts and radio and a little bit of television every once in a while.
And a little bit of discovery.
Yes, we're doing wonderful stuff right now. We're investigating the Hudson River School of Art. And just this morning, I went out and I located a place in Catterskill Clove where a man named Paul Weber, a German landscape artist, painted one of his best works. And nobody knew where it had been. And I had a pretty good idea where I was going to find it. And I did.
Nice.
I went to what used to be called Moore's Bridge at Fawn's Leap. I bet most everybody listening has been to Fawn's Leap. Just above Fawn's Leap, I found the very spot where this very substantial Hudson River School artist sat down and sketched one of his best paintings.
Wow.
What a thought that is. It really is.
Yeah, definitely going out and discovering these spots is definitely one of those milestones that you'll remember forever, because you're just like, wow, look at this. It's fantastic. Look at this. Especially with your new book. But let's before we get on to the new book, let's talk about your previous writings from both of you. Basically, maybe your books, and I'll tag Mountain Eagle with some of your stuff in the show notes. So what about your previous writings?
Our best book together was the Hudson Valley and the Ice Age. We spent about 2 years driving up and down the middle Hudson Valley and taking pictures and taking notes and thinking about how we would construct the book. And I think both of us agree it's our best effort. It's certainly.
I talked him into it.
she didn't have to. She didn't have to talk too hard. We worked very well together on that. It was so much fun because we spent so much time in the car, just driving around and looking at the Ice Age geology of the Hudson Valley. It's been very successful. It's sold pretty well. A lot of people have spoken to us about how much they enjoyed it. We're hoping to get the same response about our newest book. But the Hudson Valley and the Ice Age is our best joint effort altogether.
Yeah, I remember in episode 12 that we talked about that book, that specific book, and it was to me it's very I'm trying to figure out the word to say, very the image you can picture what you're talking about in the book, like you're standing on a certain part of Poet's Ledge, like you say, or Catterskill Falls, and you understand what you're talking about with the glaciers and the Hudson Valley and the Ice Age and different sections of that. And it's definitely fantastic.
Imagery is central to our writing. And what you just mentioned is we climbed up a Poet's Ledge about 20 years ago.
Do we have to mention that?
Yeah, we have to fess up to it. We're not as young as we were back then.
We went up the hard way.
But as you read in our book, when we got there, we looked into the past, not into the canyon as much as into the canyon's past. And we picked the moment when the melting of the glaciers was at its absolute peak. And we filled the valley with meltwater and melting ice. And it was very noisy, the rush of water down the canyon. Imagery, and imagery. And we think that's the way to communicate this science. There are any number of ways of turning that image into something that's really boring and technical and just hideous. But we'd like to portray it as we see it. in our mind's eyes.
Definitely.
With that, I would echo those comments. I haven't read much of your work, but it really conveys with a great deal of expression and imagery the processes that were at work when these forces were unfolding over the years. And I really appreciate that. And I encourage all of our listeners to read your writings. And can I ask the two of you where that comes from? Is it one of you sees that more than the other, or is it jointly? Just where does this imagery that finds its way into your writings expressed, or who does it come from?
I think it comes from having the personalities that we've had since we were little kids. We've always been curious, and that's how you kind of get involved in science, is by asking questions about things you see or things you discover and trying to find the answers to those things.
So
both of us knew by age 6 that we wanted to be scientists. We were that young. Wow. And we were that committed to science.
So you've known each other since what age? I'm starting 12. To think you're more siblings than a married couple. How far back do you go?
Yeah, well, sort of.
We met each other when I
was 12.
The late 60s. I was 84 or something.
84.
No, I forget. You were a kid.
Yes.
We just knew each other at the time. We weren't involved.
I was friends with his younger sister.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she was a very close friend of my sister's.
And that curiosity continues to burn to the present time?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Nice. That's fantastic. So, I mean, once again, knowing that you know of your previous books and such like that, and like you said, it puts the imagery of when you're standing there of those glaciers being present, and that's what I find fascinating when I read those books. Is I'm just like, oh wow, when I'm looking, you know, like you said, Poet's Ledge, and you're looking over to Haynes Falls, you see that glacier, the big ice dam that's blocking everything, and water's rushing over it, and that's how it created Haynes Falls. That's how it created, you know, Catterskill Falls. So with this new book that you have coming out, is that basically the same kind of book that you're giving people at these different viewpoints or spaces that they did this art? You're giving them the same thought of this is what it looked like.
Yes. And I want to emphasize, I really want to jump in from the very beginning. When we first thought, let's write a book, it occurred to me that in this book, I wanted us to work together to really explore the communication of the science, to dump all the technical language and really center on the imagery. The Poet's Ledge is, in many ways, maybe the stunning example, the best example of really how we wanted to make it a light read, an easy read, an image-laden read. We really focused on communication as much as the science, if not more than the science, in this book. It was something I really wanted to do, to devote ourselves to in that.
And it's all about image in the fact that we try to convey that, and this is where the schools, plural, comes in, that the writers that were writing back then, that were making the stories, like James Fenimore Cooper, Washington Irving, and the artists that were working and doing these landscapes of these kind of scary wilderness, were communicating with each other. They were in a lunch bunch. That's what they called themselves in New York City. And they'd have lunch together. And then you have, for instance, Washington Irving doing Rip Van Winkle. And that was in, I think, 1821. He published it. And then you have 1825 and Thomas Cole coming up into the Catskills for the first time and taking a look at this wilderness and painting this wilderness. He also was in contact with James Fenimore Cooper, who was writing The Pioneers, the Leatherstocking Tales. around the same time.
Wow.
Cole came up here and he made 4 paintings for the last of the Mohicans. So there are 2 schools that are interacting with each other. And then put on top of that, the school where there are landscape architects just beginning their work around here. People who were down doing Central Park in New York City were up here also helping to define the estates and the views from the estates. And that's what the landscape architecture was all about. Let's take some trees out here. Let's plant some other trees over here. And let's produce a view, a planned view of this magnificent scene that's before us.
We have this wonderful Hudson Valley culture, and the literature and the art and the landscape architecture are all intertwined to create this wonderful culture. And all of it, every bit of it, has an Ice Age origin. The glaciers created the landscape that the artists painted. It created the landscape that the architects developed, and it created the landscapes that inspired the writers, the poets of our Hudson Valley.
So should we do it? Our new chant for our new book
Yes.
is no Ice Age, no painting.
No Ice Age, no art. No Ice Age, no
Correct.
landscape art.
So when you say that, it begs me to ask something that I was wondering about leading up to this interview. To what extent are these paintings actually an accurate portrayal of what existed when they were painted, as opposed to having some modifications made by the artist?
It varies quite a bit. Some of them were very almost photographic, but all of them, I think all of them were never shy about rearranging the landscape enough to make it a better painting.
To suit themselves too.
Yeah.
If we could go back to the early 1800s or middle 1800s even, and look up and down the Hudson River, I can't imagine a more horrible scene. There were brick factories, there were ice factories, there were pollutants coming down that river that probably you didn't want to smell them from the tanneries up here in the Catskills. And there were all that chemicals and all that awful, if that's the word for it, is awful, was running down the creeks into the Hudson River. But when you look at a painting that one of those people did of the Hudson, of the shores of the Hudson, none of that exists.
You got a lot of different other stuff to add as well. You know, that the area was populated with people coming up to the Catskills from the rivers and such like that with boats. So there's big, massive clouds of smoke everywhere. But
Sure.
once you hit these paintings and once you hit, James Fenimore Cooper and such, their writings and stuff, it basically makes the Catskills were definitely a place of great worship and great solitude and nature. But, you look over to the left and there's the Hudson Valley, and that was a great deal. You're right. It's a great deal of scariness, I would say. And then what, like you said, the before, it's really cool that you said that a lot of these artists were all linked together. They were all in communication, which a lot of people don't think that they were like that back then. And, in those early days when the communication was by pigeon, is that what it was?
Yeah.
And they knew scientists. Thomas Cole knew Benjamin Silliman, who was a geologist at Yale University, a big-time geologist in the 1820s. And Frederick Church knew Louis Agassiz, professor. Yeah, he knew him.
Okay.
They influenced
That
each
was
other.
a bit later on.
You want to help me out with
in
that
the
part?
1850s.
Oh, well, of course, it's Frederick
Yeah.
Church. And Louis Agassiz is considered the father of the Ice Age theory and almost the inventor of the Ice Age, the discoverer of the Ice Age. But they weren't the least bit shy about getting to know geologists and other scientists and integrating the science of the time into their art. They had a first-rate commitment to art, but they were aware and very curious about geology. For example, in the course of Empire, Thomas Cole puts a big boulder on top of the mountain that is in the background of all 5 paintings. It's a glacial erratic. It was brought there by the Ice Age, and it's purely fictional. There's no such rock like that anywhere in the Catskills. But he was doing breaking news geology in his art. He was painting a glacial boulder in his art when they had just discovered a few years earlier that glaciers could do that they could bring boulders to landscapes and decorate the landscapes with these enormous boulders.
But I have to tell you, truth be told, Suleiman and Cole kind of had doubts about whether or not it was the Ice Age that brought the erratics to land where they did. They were more looking at the flood.
That was
okay. That was my next question.
So it was at a time where people had doubts, and are the scientists telling us the truth about this, or should we still believe in our old faith? And there was a lot of controversy during those years.
So can we go back sort of to the book a little bit? Is this like a guidebook basically, or is this just like a kind of a book to show you what would you say?
We take our readers to about 30 different locations in the Hudson Valley and Catskills. If you know Sunset Rock and Catterskill Cove, we take you there. We show you what it looks like, what the Ice Age features are there, and then we show you the art that was painted at that location by several Hudson Valley School artists. It's a guidebook which will take you to places that illustrate the geology that created the landscape that the artist painted. We take you into the Hudson Valley. We fill it with a glacial lake Albany, and we show our readers how the lake deposits created the landscape that the landscape architects, planted mansions on, Livingston Mansions, the Roosevelt home, the Vanderbilt home, all sit upon Ice Age lake deposits. And they wouldn't have the landscape architecture that they had if it wasn't for the Ice Age. It's a wonderful thing. It really is. You stand in front of the Roosevelt Mansion in Hyde Park, and you realize you're standing on a delta that was deposited in Glacial Lake, Albany, that filled the entire Hudson Valley. It makes your head spin.
Exactly. And that's absolutely fantastic. That's just like you said, imagining this when you're there, it really kind of sparks your curiosity of just wow, this is fascinating.
You read the book, we take our readers to a spot, we show them what's there, how the Ice Age created it, and then we spin them off into 20,000 years into the past, and we witness the glaciers doing what the glaciers did.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
That's the way we are in our everyday existence. Johanna and I will drive across this countryside. We'll say, look at that lake bottom.
Yeah.
And she'll say, look at that ramp and pluck topography. You don't want to drive anywhere with the two of us.
Too many stops, right?
That's why people don't understand why I don't go on group hikes, on social hikes. And that's the reason, because every 2 minutes I'm stopping to look at something and I'm disturbing everybody else that wants to go. Well, come on, let's go. We got to get to the top of the mountain.
Well, whenever Team Titus wants to take me as a tag along on a hike with the two of you, I'm completely game for it. And we could go an inch an hour as far as I'm concerned.
If you sign up our Facebook page, the Catskill Geologist, and we announce all of our events, and there will be,
you're going to do something, right?
Opus 40.
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing 3 field trips at Opus 40, June, July, and August. And I'd love to have you show up.
I'm down for it.
And I think Johanna is the program director at the Mountaintop Historical Society. She will probably recruit us to do something, and we'll announce it. The Facebook page of the Catskill Geologist, and where it's a very active Facebook page, and especially with announcements of our events.
Mhm.
Definitely. I love that page. I think it's fantastic. You ask questions, you'll get answers immediately from either you or some local person that knows their stuff.
Alex.
There's some very professional geologists who are members of that. Alex Bartholomew is excellent at identifying Devonian fossils. And
Nice.
he puts something in front of you, and you can almost as quickly as me come up with an answer. We've known Alex since he was in high school.
Yeah.
Nice. So the Hudson School of Art, can you explain the background of that organization?
Well, it really was never the Hudson River School of Art. That was a moniker that was given to it as a critique.
It was facetious.
People in Europe kind of looked down on the artists in America, especially the early artists and their so-called landscapes, because they weren't really landscapes. They were just horrible, scary wilderness. And they thought their time would have been better spent doing portraits or still lifes or something of that sort, something more civilized.
It was a sneer.
Yeah.
The Hudson River School of Art.
Because it was an entirely new style of art that was evolving. And Thomas Cole really kind of started it out. Dowdy also was one of the early people. And people started following him and started learning from him. And it just took off from there.
So let me ask you, if there's any truth to this. I read this recently, that one of the things that precipitated the artists actually getting out into the field and painting what became part of the Hudson River School of Art were portable painting products, portable easels, paints that could be transported with them, and they could actually go out into the wilderness, sit there for days on end, and either sketch or paint what it was that they were looking at. Is any truth to that?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that was found at Thomas Cole's house in his basement was his painter's box with the paints and brushes and palettes in there. And it was the same box that he used when he went out into the wilderness.
Nice.
You knew Ray Beecher, who founded that institution as a museum. And we were there the day he opened it up to the public. And he so proudly showed us this paint kit. And this is Thomas Cole's painting kit. And he was it was a big surprise. They didn't know it was there. It just showed up. Thomas Cole's painting kit.
Wow. Unbelievable.
We've been very fortunate to know so many people throughout the Catskills who have become very important and influential in developing the culture that exists here today. It's a wonderful thing. It's been a great experience for us the last 25 years, all the people we've met and influenced us, and we've been able to influence them.
So is there anything special about the Catskills that draws you to the Catskills itself as opposed to the Adirondacks, the White Mountains, or some other mountain range?
Oh, I want to answer that one. Yeah, two colors, red, brick red, and green. You see, the bedrock geology of the Catskill Mountains is essentially a petrified delta. And the delta soils were in a tropical setting. They were what you might call Georgian red clays. They were brick red in color. There is no such thing in the Adirondacks. The Adirondack bedrock is never red. Of course, it's green in the Adirondacks, but the green goes together so well with the red of the bedrock in the Catskills. It makes a characteristic pair of colors, green and brick red, throughout the Catskills. And oh, do I like that. It's the geology, the color of the rocks, as much as anything. It draws me to the Catskills and drives me away from the Adirondacks. I don't like the Adirondacks. No offense.
Well, and the Catskills are also sedimentary rocks, so they are layer upon layer upon layer, and you can read time in those layers. And it's relatively easy to read time.
And they're
in those
fossils,
layers.
and I'm a paleontologist. There's no fossils in the Adirondacks.
Wow. So that's a big blow away question right there. So I like that answer. It's pretty crazy. So how did this Tad, I know you had this question. I'm going to steal this. How did this differentiate from Europe with Thomas Cole and stuff like that? Because I know he used to paint over in Europe and then came over here, right?
No wilderness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when he was young.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You could see a 800-year-old ruin of a castle in Europe. And in fact, everywhere in Europe you went, there are things that go back to Rome, for crying out loud. People call European landscape in Thomas Cole's day park-like. But here we use the word wilderness. The definition of wilderness that I personally like is you look at a painting and you see a landscape, you can imagine that you could easily go into that landscape, but when you stop and think about it, you wonder, but could I ever get out? Look at an Asher Brown Duran forest scene. It's easy, you could walk into that forest, but would you ever be able to turn around and find your way back out? There's something scary. Johanna said that a few minutes ago. There's something scary about the sublime landscapes of the Catskills where they did this painting. It was just it made the landscape that made your spine shiver just a little bit. And you couldn't see that in Europe. It didn't exist in Europe. It's just something emotional, something visceral, something that tingles when you look at an American landscape back then. And that's the difference. That's the difference.
and people here in America were, in a way, envious of Europe because Europe had history. There were hundreds of years of civilization.
Thousands.
Yeah, in some cases, in Europe. And that didn't exist here. This was a place that was new. So they had to make their own style and they had to make their own history.
Yeah. And I agree with you, speaking of the wilderness aspect of their paintings, because you can definitely see with Thomas Cole's paintings and others' paintings that it basically looked untouched. Like their paintings look scary and stuff with the mist hanging in over the other parts of the mountains, or it's coming in, or just the trees lingering there. It did have a feel of like you said, damn, am I going to get out of this?
I used to go, when I still lived in northern New Jersey, where we grew up, I used to go on Sunday mornings to the Metropolitan Museum. And I used to sit on the floor in the American wing, staring at Frederick Church's Heart of the Andes and feeling that same way, like, how did he do this? And how did he get in there? And how did he know what was behind that tree? And it's scary looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's actually all fun to think of that in somewhat of a way, just like, what we see and what they see as of that time,
And it's even the fairy tales, right? A small community builds up. So they clear some land and they make little farms. But at the edges of those farms are the deep, dark woods. And who's there? The wolves are there. The bears are there, and don't go in there. They're going to get you. And
the mountain lions are there too. They had mountain lions back then.
Yep.
And the vultures are circling above.
Oh.
All right. So, do you think what do you think that they saw in these places? How did they get to these places of kind of like the viewpoints back then, where there wasn't guidebooks, when there wasn't these ways of communication that we had like, internet, books, stuff like that. How did they find these places to take these amazing paintings and make them into what they want?
Well, there were already some people up there, so there were some trails here and there.
True.
The trails were kind of rough, but yeah, there were some trails, and they just walked probably like we would do if we wanted to go to the highest point to see what we could see when we got there.
They couldn't lose wherever they went. They
True.
could not lose.
True. They found their spot. They could have just started painting and it would have came out even beautiful anyway.
Right.
And, people had already discovered, I imagine, indigenous people had already discovered like Pine Orchard and Catterskill Falls and, the big money-making kind of scenes before they had gotten there. And so there were guides to get them to those places.
True.
So how is it if Thomas Cole is either the founder or one of the founders of the Hudson River School, how is it came about that he was discovered as an artist doing this work and that the school got its momentum and became a popular school of art?
Well, that story is a commonly told one. Thomas Cole came up here, was it 1825, late summer, early autumn, and he painted 3, 4, 5 awfully good paintings, including the one of Catterskill Falls. And they were brought back to New York City and put on display in the window of a store, an art store, I suppose. They sold, boom, just like that. And they got very good newspaper reviews in the local newspapers. And so he was a success overnight.
But what you didn't say is that a couple of those paintings were bought by artists who were already had reputations in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So they showed them to other artists that they knew, and it passed on.
He was a Sacco hit right at the beginning.
And do we have any idea what those paintings sold for in 1825?
$25.
25 bucks, which back then was probably a lot of money.
Wow, $25. No way. All right, hold on. I gotta figure that out. So that was 1825.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's say 1825 money to now. Let's see.
It's more than Stosh makes a week.
This is science going on right here.
So $1 in 1825 is equivalent to purchasing power to about $39. So $25 times $1, $39. So 25 times 39, $975 today.
Still not a whole lot, right?
Not a whole lot for especially that amazing painting.
The most successful, financially successful of the Hudson River School people was Frederick Church. And he did monstrous paintings.
And got $10,000 for Heart of the Andes. $10,000. That was a lot of money.
Back in 1800s?
In the 1870s, I suppose. 1850s, I suppose.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yikes.
An interesting question would be if it was a monstrous painting, did he actually paint it when he was out in the field in the Catskills, or did he took sketches or something, went back either to a local studio in the Catskills or New York City and painted it there?
The famous 10th Street studio in New York City. They would bring their sketchbooks back in the middle of October, I suppose, and they'd spend the winter indoors turning their sketches into paintings.
And then he would display his paintings. He would charge a nickel a person to come in and look at his latest painting. And people would come.
Throngs of people would come.
There were no movies back then or anything like that. So
True.
And can we tie the 10th Street paintings into the lunch brunch that you spoke of earlier, where they all hang out there, have lunch together?
The lunch brunch evolved into a later group called the Sketchbook. And so they were still active up until around the 1870s.
Wow.
I don't know, that they met every week or whatever, but they were still communicating with each other and looking at each other's work and so on.
Was there any envy or ego competition amongst them?
They're people, I imagine there was.
Yeah, right. And you think about this, they might have gotten together, weekly or biweekly, but you remember how long it used to take from New York City to the Catskills. It would take 3 to 5 days. If you were rich, it would take 3 days, 5 days if you were not rich. So go up by boat, go by horse and buggy all the way up to the Catskill Mountain House, and then do your paintings around the area, and then come back. Wow, that's crazy that they would get together that often and probably chat. And one of them would be like, "Hey, don't steal my location. I know about this."
Mm-hmm. A lot of them did not spend the winter in the Catskills. They went down to New York City for the winter.
That's unfortunate because that would have been a beautiful time to see the Catskills.
Oh, yeah. But it's also a very hard time to live in the Catskills back then.
Definitely. We basically know that the Catskills basically during those times were dead because of just thought of keeping yourself warm that long. And, with the weather back then probably was absolutely insane. So awesome. So let's get back to basically your visualization. So you guys have been to all these sites, correct?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what you are portraying your thoughts with the geology of these sites that they've been to and they've painted. You're just boom, putting the geology in this picture.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's to go with your other books, to think of that, like you said, Sunset Rock and different places like that. It's got to be phenomenal.
Yeah. You got to come sometime. The program director is going to have to recruit me to do another hike up to Sunset Rock. And
October.
There's a lot of the evidence is there when you go. Sunset Rock is a ledge, but it's got direct, immediate evidence of the ice age. It's got scratches on its surface where boulders and cobbles were dragged across the sandstone by moving ice, by moving glaciers. It's got a fracture pattern that can only be created by the passage of a glacier across a bedrock. You can stand, you can look down at the rock, you can put your finger, literally put your finger on the evidence, and you can point the direction that the glacier went. You can turn around and point in the direction that the glacier came from. In many locations, you can point, you can stand on places where meltwater carved canyons. You can look at, of course, Catskill Cove. It's a canyon carved by meltwater. You've been there, you know how big it is. Can you imagine? Melting glaciers created the water that eroded Catskill Cove and Plattekill Cove. And you stand there and you look at it. And a word that Johanna and I don't like to use is the word awe, because it's too commonly used. But we can't escape that word. It follows us around wherever we go in the Catskills. We look and we see the evidence and we realize what is there in front of us, and we can't help but being awed by it. To stand on Poet's Ledge and to fill the valley below you with ice, and beneath that ice is massive amounts of water, meltwater, cascading down the canyon, raging, foaming, bounding, thundering torrents.
I knew you would do that.
Torrents of water going down the canyon.
But Town, you have to understand also that we do some real science. Okay. One of the things that absolutely astounded, I think, both of us was that we were at North Lake and we were looking at different glacial striations.
Scratches.
And you can figure out the direction of a glacier by the way the striations are moving, the compass direction they're moving in. And so on one end, they were going one way. And on the other end, they were coming in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So that we stood there and all of a sudden there was an epiphany that there were two glaciers and they came at each other head on. And in the middle of North-South Lake, they smack dab ran into each other.
We wrote a column, an article in Catskill Life magazine, which was entitled Ice Age Train Wrecks.
I'll have to
And
look that
nobody
one up.
recognized that. It was a scientific discovery.
And I don't even have imagery that I can very quickly go to about an occasion like that. Because what happens when those two glaciers hit each other? Do they go up in the air? Do they crash? Do they crumble? Do they,
It's not happening today because glaciers are not advancing today.
Yeah.
So we're
Yep.
taking readers back to a time when glaciers were expanding, when the climate was getting colder, and things happened then that can't happen on the planet Earth today. But you can
Yep.
only imagine them. And you struggle. Johanna can't imagine what happened. You do the best you can, but wow, two glaciers collided right here. You're standing there and the glaciers collided with each other. That's awe. You cannot escape that word.
Yep, exactly.
Now, if you can get us to use the word iconic, then you're really doing
No, no, no.
we
no,
refuse to.
No.
So you stole my thunder there because one of my three questions was going to be, what is the greatest realization or discovery that you've made in your journey? Journeys throughout
experience.
Yes. And is this it? The collision of the two glaciers?
Glacial spillways.
Yeah. When you go to Stony Clove, you pass through a deep V-shaped valley, and you go up to Grand Gorge, and you pass through another steep valley. And what's the one in the middle? It's called Deep Gorge, I think.
Deep notch.
Deep notch.
Deep Notch.
Mm.
And all three of those were carved, probably over the course of decades or centuries, by the meltwater of a glacier that filled up the Schoharie Creek Valley. And that is, to realize that's an epiphany. To stand at the bottom of the canyon at the top of Stony Clove, to look to the north, to see the blue-gray image of a melting glacier, to feel torrents of meltwater pouring through that gap where you're standing, and to watch it disappear off to the south. It's a journey into a past that simply doesn't exist anywhere today. There's nothing that maybe somewhere in Greenland that's happening today.
Himalayas maybe a little bit.
Maybe somewhere.
Yeah, but it's not like that though. Not like that at all.
Not like that. The word epiphany, it's not hard to get us to use the word epiphany. We get so excited. But just this morning, I took photographs of a site that was painted in 1858 by a renowned landscape artist. And nobody had known this site since 1858. It wasn't recorded in the literature where he painted this image. It's Paul Weber, and A View in the Catskills is the title of the painting, which doesn't tell you anything about where it was painted. And I had a pretty good idea where it was, and I went out this morning, and there it was.
Wow.
Because stand where you stood.
You have to have a pretty good memory of what the rock surfaces look like, and maybe some individual big boulders, but what the shape of the boulders were when you looked at them.
Yeah.
And then you can do that. You can say, I know where that is.
Yeah, we've had an experience where we both pointed at a painting at the same time and said, and then we say where it was. We did several articles in the Mountain Eagle recently, tracing down where Thomas Cole painted two of his paintings, and nobody had ever recorded where they were. Have you ever been up to the Rip Van Winkle house on the old Mountain Turnpike? Well,
Yes.
Thomas Cole went up there once, and the stage stopped there. They got out, and they had refreshments. I think Thomas Cole got out, and he took out a sketch pad, and he painted an image of the canyon, below him. We went over to a place called Oak Road in northwest Saugerties, and we found the location where Thomas Cole painted another, which he entitled Catskill Landscape, which tells you nothing about where it was. But we looked at the painting and we saw the bottom of a lake and we saw the lower part of a clove in the Catskills. We knew it had to be Catskill Clove. There was only a little bit of it in the painting. But below Catskill Clove, there's an Ice Age lake, a flat landscape at the bottom of the lake. And we had no trouble. We got the map out. We said, it's got to be here. Look at that. There's something called Oak Road. So we drove down to Oak Road and we got out on Oak Road. Oak Road has been there for 200 years. There are stone houses on Oak Road. They have to go back to the 1700s. And we found it. We found the site where he painted the painting. We could go and stand where we think he must have stood. And we realized that, nobody has been here. Nobody has looked at this view since Thomas Cole did it himself.
Wow.
Can you imagine what an experience that is? You can go see the paintings at Cedar Grove. They're hanging on the wall.
Awesome. I will tag that.
So I hate to be the party pooper here, but let me now go on the other tack.
Yeah.
What is the greatest mystery or greatest thing that you want to figure out how it happened or came to be in the Catskills, but you haven't been able to connect the dots yet?
Golly. We're going to think of that 5 minutes after the show is over. We'll say, we'll snap our fingers.
That's how it happens.
That's a tough question.
There's nothing out there that you look at and wonder some more.
When you ask me like that, I can't think of them.
No. Sorry to put you on the spot. If you want, I could.
That's one of the questions you have to tell your interview person ahead of time. We could have spent all last night thinking about it.
For me, I have little arguments with some of the people that I know around in the Catskills about how the ice melted. Picture a gigantic, mile-high sheet of ice all the way back to Newfoundland. And when it started to melt, how did it melt? Did it melt from the bottom? Did it melt from the top? And I'm of the opinion that the sun hit the top and it started melting from the top. And it caused cracks. And everywhere there was a crack in the ice, the water would start coming down. And it would go down and all the way down to the bottom of the glacier and then flow out. And you see that happening in Greenland a lot now because there's a lot of ice melting, unfortunately in Greenland. But you see temporary lakes appear where the ice on the top is melting and then the ice will crack underneath it and all of a sudden that lake will disappear in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary, but
Johanna imagines, and I think she convinced me of this. I disagreed with her at first. She imagines that both Catskill Clove and Plattekill Clove, the lower parts were shaded. And so they were the last parts to melt. And in our book, we portray Catskill Clove partially filled, halfway filled up with melting ice, where all the higher elevation ice is melted away. I just thought of a mystery that I've been working on for years. This is a good one.
All right, let's hear it.
Go to Olana in the middle of the winter, a real winter, when the Catskills are blanketed in snow. You have an image that kind of takes you back to the Ice Age. The Catskills were blanketed in snow during the Ice Age. It occurred to me that if I could get to Olana late at night on a full moon night when the Catskills were blanketed in snow, that I would be able to take a photo. And I would represent this as what the Catskills must have looked like from Olana at the peak of the Ice Age. Well, you know what winters have been like. The people at Alana were really nice. They said, we will give you permission to come over there anytime late at night on a full moon night. And that would be starting at about 11 o'clock when the moon is high up in the sky. We'd be delighted to have you come over. Just let us know you're coming and we won't arrest you. But we haven't been able to get the Catskills blanketed in snow. We've been years now, we've been hoping that we'd get a full moon and be able to go over there and take the picture. I'm dying to do that. And I don't know if it'll ever happen. That's a good one.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is that you would go to Alana and you would see basically the blackheads white, but with their tippy tops, with their forest. And it would basically be looking like there's glaciers on there. And then all the things that would be sticking out would be Thomas Cole Blackstone Blackhead.
Yep.
Wow. Good.
Be blanketed in snow. There'd be a sheen, a silvery sheen. We've already got the phrase written. We haven't got the picture.
And of course, there's always the pothole at Alana.
Oh, yeah. Oh, a good thing.
Okay,
Lake? During the melting of a glacier, vast quantities of water pour through the ice. They're carrying sand with them. When they get to the bedrock below, it's not unusual for the water to swirl and actually drill a hole into the bedrock below. We call it a pothole. On the Mohawk River, there's an island, there's a couple dozen of these potholes. It's very famous for that. Well, they found in the late 1800s, when Frederick Church was still there.
He was building Alana.
Yeah, they found a pothole. They took good pictures of it. And we've never been able to locate it.
Henry Osborne, who was one of the founders of the Museum of Natural History in New York City, was standing inside the pothole. And he was like over his head.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So you're telling me there's this pothole sitting out in the middle of somewhere of the Blackhead Mountains, Alana area?
Somewhere.
Yeah. What we're afraid of is that Frederick Church used it to fill it up with garbage.
Oh, so this is challenge accepted.
We got photographs. We know it's there. There's photographs of it. And we've alerted them. They all know about it, but I've gone looking and Joanna's helped look. We've looked. It's supposed to be at 300 feet in elevation. And we've literally walked the 300-foot contour line and we can't find the thing.
Interesting.
We found.
Challenge.
We have 3 mysteries that we haven't been able to solve.
Challenge accepted.
300 feet.
And you said this was 300 feet. So this would be, are you talking, okay. All right. So we'll check it out. All right. So, thank you for joining us guys tonight. I'm going to tag all your book in here tonight, and great discussion about, once again, the geology of the Catskills and how the Hudson School art came into contact with this geology and portrayed it. And you guys are going to portray it even more with your geology terms and your geology imagination that I love oh so much with your books. So,
and come see us on Saturday morning at the FDR Library at the Wallace Center.
We're speaking at Local History Day and this Saturday at 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Awesome. Hopefully I'll get this out on Friday. So hopefully people will join you there. So, last question, post hike, brews and bites. What do you guys suggest to go get something to eat and or drink in the Catskills?
She's a wonderful cook, She likes to make very good sandwiches, which we have on our hikes. So it's tough to compete.
That's cheating.
That's cheating.
Yeah. If it's the truth, stick with it.
A restaurant somewhere. There's that place in Wyndham. They make good sandwiches. What's the name of that place? I can't think of it. We could take you there. I just can't think of its name.
Hey, that's all good. So I'll find a place in Wyndham and I'll tag them in this just to give them some.
5 minutes after the show is over. We'll email you.
Please do. I'll throw it in there. So once again, thank you to the monthly supporters and monthly sponsors. Really appreciate you guys sticking with us for the show. Thank you to everyone who's still listening. Once again, Dr. Titus, after 108 18 episodes, you're back again to join us and talk about your new book. And once again, we had a great time chatting with you. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Team Titus.
Thank you once again, Team Titus. Have a good night. We'll chat again. Thank you.
Yep. Good night.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked, 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 wicked.